Hello everyone. Today I want to show you how to create a Google Calendar AI agent in n8n. The goal of this video would be to have an AI agent where you can chat and manage all your Google Calendar events. So that includes creating your calendar events, updating calendar events, deleting your calendar events, and getting the list of all the calendar events. And I'll first show you a demo on how you can use this. So I have the chat here, where if I just click on either click on the chat directly, or if I just go to the chat itself, and then I can ask. So this is just a demo text that I have set up, but I'll ask, can you give me all the events for next week? And what this will do is that it will go to my Google Calendar and get all the events that's available or set up for next week. And here it says that I have 2 events for next week, which is for YouTube posting on Monday and then sales teams meeting on Tuesday. So if you go to my calendar, you will see that the 2 events that has been set up for next week. And I'll show you an example how you can set up a meeting. So let's say, can you set up a meeting for me on with marketing team next Wednesday at 10 a.m. And what this will do is that it will trigger the MCP client and then MCP server, and then it will set up the meeting to my Google Calendar. And if you go to this link, it now shows that I have the calendar event set up for 7 a.m. And the reason this, I think this is setting up on the daytime is using the Eastern Standard Time, which I think can be changed. So how did I set this up? I'll show you. So for this setup, I have 4 major components. So the first component is the chat. The second component is the AI agent, which includes the AI agent, and then the tools agent and the chat model, which is OpenAI. And the third agent is the third component is the MCP client. And then the fourth component is MCP client that is connected to my MCP server, which is the MCP server with all the Google calendars that I have set up here. So I'll do a rundown on how I set up each of the components. So the first component is the chat itself, which is the same. It's the default chat that you get in n8n. And what I've done is here is that I have set up the chat, and then I had made it public. And if you were to test it, you don't really have to do any setup. You can just leave all the settings as default. But if you want to make it public so that you can have a URL like this, where you can use it as a chat, then you have to make it to public and make the chat public, and also you have to make your workflow active. So that's all the setup you have to do in here. And for AI agent, if you go to here, I'm using the tools agent, and then for the setup, it's all the setup by default, so I haven't made any changes. And the main changes that I've done is that I have I have changed the system message, where you have the URL help for the assistant, and I added the current date and time in here. And for the chat model, I have used the OpenAI chat model, and all the setting is by default, so you can set up your chat model and configure all the credentials that is needed by default. So I won't go into details on how to do the setup. And for the models, I'm using the cheapest model from OpenAI, which is the GPT-4 Mini. And for the MCP client, what I have done is that if you go to the MCP client, so this MCP client is for the first node that comes with the n8n, so you don't really have to do any setting, but you have to set up this SEE endpoint. And I had the questions before from the comments, and this is something that you will get from the next step, which I will show you. And this is the MCP SSE endpoint that you have to set up. And then get the URL and put it here. And the rest of the settings are there by default. And for the URL to get, you have to get it from the MCP server. And let me show you where I have set up the server. So if you go to here, I have the MCP server, and which is set it to active. And for the MCP server, I have used the MCP server node, which comes shipped by default. So if you go just search for MCP server trigger, and it will show up here, and you can just select that. And for this, I haven't done any changes. And for authentication, you can set up your private authentication if you wanted to keep your MCP server private. And for URL, I have used this URL, which comes by default. So you don't really have to set this URL up. When you set up this MCP server, this URL will show up by default. And for the MCP URL, you have two options to choose between test and production URL. You can use either one for development, and it doesn't really matter. And whenever you are deploying your workflow in production, you can switch to production URL and you use that URL. And this is the URL that you will have to set up in the MCP client in the previous workflow. And for the tools, I have used the default tool that comes along with the n8n. And how to get it is that you can go to search and then just search for Google Calendar, and that's the first tool that shows up. And I have made 4 copies of that node, and for each of the nodes, it has different operations. So first one has get all events. The second node has create events. The third has update operation, and then the fourth one has the delete operation. So if I go to first node, the setup are almost all there are the same as default. And for operations, that's a key one, and I've chosen here to get many. So it gets all the does search for all the operations that's in all the events that's in my calendar. And for the calendar, you can choose it by ID or from the list. And I have many calendar types, but I have chosen the one associated with my email. And for the rest of the setup, I have set it up to define automatically by the model. So you have the limits after and before, which basically means the timing of the calendar event. And for the create node, it's the same node, but what you have to do differently is that you have to change the operations to create, and then you choose the calendar type. That's with my email, and then for the start and end time, you are choosing the set automatically by the model, so you don't really have to change anything. And the setup you have to do is that on additional field, you have the option to choose a description and summary. And then in description, I have set this, use this $ from AI function, and I had just like typed in the event description and then the description of this key. And then similarly, I have done it for summary, is that event title and then the event title here. So that's pretty much it. And you can set this up if you want to have extra metadata with your calendar. You can choose all of these options that comes with it. And for the update event, you can all the settings are there by default, but for operations you choose update, and then for calendar you choose the email. In the event ID you choose the event ID defined by the model, and for the description and in the summary, as like before, you can use this the custom code on the event description and event title. And then for the started in time, you can choose the one set automatically by the model, so the model will set those up based on the chat. And for the last tool setup, you have the same event, the event tools, and for operations you choose delete. For the calendar, you choose the calendar that you're using, and then the event ID, you just use the one automatically set up by the model. And that's all you have to do. So you just have to save the this workflow, and then you have to make it active. And then once you make it active, what you have to do is that you have to come here and get the MCP URL, the SE URL. And you see here, if you click on it, it automatically copies the URL. So you just copy that URL. It doesn't really matter if it's a test URL or production URL. You just copy that URL and you go back to the previous workflow. And then you go to previous workflow and then go to your MCP client, and then you just paste the previous URL that you're using, which is the same as SE endpoint. And that's pretty much, that's all the setup you have to do. And then if you just save it, and then you can just use this workflow. So just to remind you, so you have four main components. You have the chat, the AI model, the connection from the AI model to the MCP client, and then for MCP client, you have connection to the MCP server, and for the MCP server, you have all the tools or the operations that you wanted to do connected to the MCP server. Okay, so I think that's it, and then I'll share the files and all the files related to the to this video on the GitHub, and then I'll paste the link below, and so you can just copy paste, just copy the files in your n8n server, so you don't really have to make any of the changes. So, and then this URL I will share in the YouTube description. Then you can just copy and download it and copy it. All right, and thanks for watching, and then make sure to subscribe and then leave in the comments if you like this content.